The husband was watching a boxing match when his wife picked up the remote and shut off the TV without a second thought.
Hey, I was watching that.
Enraged, the husband jumped to his feet and slammed his wife's head straight into the wall. Little did he know that this reckless act would dig his own grave.
Oh, baby, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna get you some ice, okay? Okay, I'm gonna get you some ice. Hold on.
Madison knew full well her husband had a volatile temper, and that he could lash out violently at any moment. Desperate to protect her unborn baby, she ignored the pain shooting through her body, rushed into the bedroom and locked the door from the inside. When she checked her injuries, she found blood pouring from the back of her head. Her husband was a raging alcoholic, and this was far from the first time he'd beaten her. So no matter how many sweet lies he mumbled through the door, she refused to open it. Not long after, the husband, who'd passed out drunk on the couch, was jolted awake by a shrill, whirring mechanical noise. Confused, he followed the sound into the kitchen, only to find the meat grinder on the stovetop running on its own for no apparent reason. His wife was asleep in the bedroom, and there was no one else in the house. Who on earth could have turned it on? He just reached out to hit the off switch when the fridge door behind him creaked open on its own, completely out of the blue. The man stared in stunned disbelief. Was his wife messing with him on purpose? Before he could wrap his head around what was happening, a deafening static blast erupted from the living room. He sprinted back to find a shadowy figure in black sitting on the couch, flipping rapidly through the TV channels. But the second a movie flickered onto the screen, the figure that had just been sitting there vanished into thin air in the blink of an eye. Had he just imagined it? But the cushion was still springing back from a deep indentation. Someone had definitely been sitting there. As he stood there frozen in confusion, the shadowy figure materialized silently behind him like a ghost. The very moment the figure lunged to attack, Madison jolted awake in the bedroom from a terrible nightmare. She saw blood on her pillow and frantically felt the back of her head. Her wound was still bleeding, just as she'd feared. She rushed downstairs to beg her husband to take her to the hospital, only to find him dead in the living room, his neck grotesquely snapped. Seconds later, she spotted the wild-haired, shadowy figure standing right beside his body. Madison was paralyzed with terror. She spun around and sprinted back upstairs, but just as she tried to slam the bedroom door shut, the figure burst through behind her, sending her flying several meters across the room. She blacked out instantly. Not long after, police arrived on the scene in response to a neighbor's emergency call, and even they were horrified by the brutality of the man's death. What confused them even more was that there were no signs of forced entry anywhere in the house. How on earth had the killer gotten inside? The next day, Detective Shaw, the lead investigator on the case, went to the hospital to speak with Madison about what had happened. But Madison had lost her unborn baby in the attack, and she refused to answer any questions. Meanwhile, officers who'd spoken to Madison's neighbors uncovered two critical pieces of information. First, Madison's husband had a well-documented history of domestic abuse. Second, Madison had suffered 3 miscarriages in the past 2 years. Combined with the lack of forced entry at the crime scene, this led Detective Hannah to conclude that Madison was the prime suspect. 2 weeks later, Madison was released from the hospital and returned home. That night, she glanced out the window to see the streetlight below flickering erratically for no reason. Seconds later, she saw the shadowy figure walking toward the house, and her already frayed nerves snapped back into a state of sheer panic. Madison raced downstairs and locked every door and window in the house. She made it through the night shaken but unharmed, and first thing the next morning, she boarded up every window and door with wooden planks. Even her own sister, who'd come to check on her, had to climb in through a second-floor window. It was clear just how deep the trauma of the attack had cut. One day, as Madison was getting ready to do laundry, a searing pain shot through the wound on her head. She frantically felt the back of her skull. More than a month had passed, and the wound still hadn't healed. What was even more unsettling was that, moments after she tossed her dirty clothes into the front-loading washing machine, she saw the face of a strange woman materialize on the glass door out of nowhere.
What are you doing in my house? This is my house! Who are you?
Just then, the shadowy figure stepped into view, grabbed the woman by the hair, and slammed her violently to the ground. In an instant, the room warped and shifted around her, and Madison suddenly found herself standing inside the strange woman's house. Before she could process what was happening, she watched the figure grab a trophy and bludgeon the woman's head over and over again in a frenzied attack. The next second, Madison was back in her own home. At first, she told herself it had just been a terrible nightmare. But what she didn't know was that, at that very moment, police had arrived at a new crime scene and determined that the woman's murder was identical to her husband's. They were certain the same killer was responsible. This latest victim was Dr. Glenn, a renowned pediatric surgeon. Her home was filled with files on every patient she'd ever treated. Detectives Hannah and Shaw suspected the killer was likely one of her former patients. They boxed up every single file and took them back to the precinct, going through each one by one in the hopes of finding even the smallest clue. Meanwhile, Madison was lying in bed about to fall asleep when she suddenly saw a large man lying right beside her. She was frozen with absolute terror, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't move her body an inch. Seconds later, the shadowy figure materialized silently behind her, crawled slowly over her body, then suddenly pulled out a long blade and stabbed the man over and over again, dozens of times. Only after the figure had finished did Madison regain control of her body. She shot upright in bed, screaming at the top of her lungs. After these back-to-back terrifying incidents, Madison could take no more. She and her sister went to the police station to tell the detectives everything she'd seen and experienced. But Hannah, who'd suspected Madison from the start, didn't believe a single word of her story. Instead, she mocked her, calling her delusional and insane. Madison's sister had finally had enough. She demanded that Hannah go to the scene immediately, saying that if no murder had taken place, they'd willingly check themselves into a psychiatric facility. Madison had looked up the man's address online, 298 Doomsday Drive. With no other choice, Hannah and Shaw drove to the address with the two sisters. When they arrived at the man's apartment, they found him dead inside, exactly as Madison had described. For the first time, Hannah was forced to consider that Madison might actually have seen the killer. Police created a composite sketch of the killer based on Madison's description, only to reveal a grotesque, disfigured monster. This made Hannah doubt Madison all over again, convinced she was just a deranged woman making up wild stories. Even so, Madison didn't argue. Later, as she was washing her face in the bathroom, she received an anonymous phone call.
Hello?
Emily,
My name is Madison.
your fake mother gave you the name Madison, but you'll always be Emily to me.
Who are you?
You know who I am. Even if they say I'm only in your head,
I don't know what you're talking about.
you let them tell you I wasn't real. That I was just a voice, and you believed them. Now, I'm going to make them pay for what they did. One by one.
Gabriel, no!
See, deep down, you've always known.
Please stop. Please.
Oh, we're just getting started.
In a moment of panic, Madison blurted out the figure's name without even thinking. Even she couldn't explain how she knew his name was Gabriel. But she was certain of one thing, she'd known him before. Madison had been adopted by her mother when she was 8 years old, and she had no memory of anything that happened before that. So she was convinced Gabriel was someone she'd known before her adoption. She immediately drove to her mother's house and asked if she'd ever heard the name Gabriel. The second her mother heard that name, a look of sheer terror washed over her face. Because when Madison first came to live with her, she'd often talk to thin air for no reason.
Stop saying that. They are.
Maddie, who are you talking to?
No one.
Maddie, what did we say about lying?
I wasn't.
Well, then who are you talking to?
Gabriel.
At first, her mother thought Gabriel was just Madison's imaginary friend. She thought that with enough love and care, Madison would grow out of it. But as time went on, Madison's strange behavior only got worse. She talked to Gabriel on a toy phone, saying things that made her mother's blood run cold. Meanwhile, Detective Shaw finally found a suspicious patient file in Dr. Glenn's records, a 7-year-old girl named Emily. Emily suffered from frequent hallucinations, and claimed she could see the devil on a regular basis. Hoping to cure Emily, Dr. Glenn had recruited Dr. John and Dr. Victor to create a specialized treatment plan for her. That patient, Emily, was none other than Madison, before she changed her name. As soon as Shaw read this, he realized what was going on. He quickly pulled up a photo of the 3 doctors together, and sure enough, 2 of them were already victims of the killer. Unless they stopped him, Dr. John would be the next victim. At the same time, Madison was washing up at home when she saw Dr. John's reflection in her bathroom mirror. In an instant, she was once again transported, this time to his home. Minutes later, Detective Shaw raced to Dr. John's house in a desperate panic, only to find him already dead in the bathtub. When Madison saw Shaw burst into the room, she ran toward him screaming for help, only to realize he couldn't hear her. He couldn't even see her, she was completely invisible to him. Just then, the shadowy figure dropped from the ceiling, tackled Shaw to the ground before he could react, then sprinted out of the room. This is the 2021 supernatural horror film Malignant, directed by visionary filmmaker James Wan. Shaw chased the figure through the city to an abandoned building. The figure suddenly leaped down from the top of an old carriage, aiming to kill Shaw with a single strike of his blade. But Shaw was a highly trained, seasoned officer, and even with the surprise attack, he didn't give an inch. Knowing he couldn't win a prolonged fight, the figure turned and leaped up onto the rafters with superhuman agility, vanishing into the darkness. Shaw knew the 3 doctors' deaths were inextricably linked to Madison. He immediately drove to her house, told her everything he'd uncovered, and tried to get her to remember more about her past. But Madison still had no memory of her life before age 8. Desperate for the truth, Shaw brought in a licensed psychologist to try to recover Madison's lost memories through hypnosis.
Gabriel. You followed me home from the hospital. I'm the only one that can see you.
You ruined your mother's cake.
I didn't. It was Gabriel.
You can't keep lying like this, Maddie. There's no Gabriel.
Go to your room. Madison, go to your room right now.
So if he does something bad, I'm the one that gets in trouble. Go away.
No one knew what Gabriel had said to her over the phone, but Madison heeded his manipulation. She grabbed a knife and walked into the kitchen to cut her mother a slice of cake, only for the kitchen to warp and shift into her mother's bedroom before her eyes.
Madison!
Cut her.
In that moment, Madison's memories of Gabriel came flooding back. She'd blocked them out completely after her little sister was born, burying them deep in the back of her mind.
Wait, are you saying that the killer is your imaginary friend?
Was Gabriel really just a figment of her imagination? For now, Madison couldn't think of a better explanation. Just as the group was at a loss for what to do next, a woman fell through the ceiling and crashed hard onto the living room floor. Madison completely broke down at the sight. The group had just started to believe she wasn't responsible for Gabriel's crimes, but now they found a woman held captive in her attic, along with the murder weapon and the killer's clothing. There was no way she was innocent. Hannah and Shaw immediately took Madison back to the station, interrogating her relentlessly about who the woman was and why she'd been holding her captive. But Madison insisted she was not the killer, that Gabriel had kidnapped the woman and locked her in the attic of her home.
You were sick in the head when you were young. Those doctors helped you. It worked for a while. But now your sickness is back and you blame them for fucking you up.
No. It's not.
Stop lying to us.
I'm telling the fucking truth!
Just as Hannah and Shaw stared at each other in stunned shock, Madison suddenly spoke up, telling them Gabriel wanted to talk to them over the phone.
This is Detective Shaw.
Hello, Detective.
Who am I talking to?
You know who I am. You found me,
I didn't find you soon enough.
but you found my things. I want them back.
Why was your stuff in her attic? You trying to incriminate her?
Don't bitch didn't even know I was nesting in her home.
Who are you, Gabriel?
I thought she had already told you. I'm a figment of her imagination. Ask her what she used to call me.
The devil.
Was Gabriel really just a monster Madison had imagined? Police couldn't rule out Madison as a suspect just yet, so they locked her up in a jail cell to await further questioning. Meanwhile, Madison's mother searched through boxes of old belongings and finally found Madison's original adoption papers. Madison's sister immediately called the adoption agency, and learned that Madison had been treated at the Simeon Research Hospital before her adoption. Desperate to uncover the truth, Madison's sister drove straight to the Simeon Research Hospital, only to find it long abandoned and in ruins. Even so, she ventured inside the building. Using the directory in the lobby, she found the floor where the archives were kept, and successfully located all the research files on Emily. She rushed straight home with the files, and as she watched the old videotapes one by one, she learned the truth about Madison's birth mother, Serena. In 1985, Serena had been sexually assaulted, and gave birth to twins as a result. The baby girl was Emily, and the baby boy was Gabriel. Serena was only 15 years old at the time, and couldn't raise the two children on her own. Under pressure from her own mother, she signed the children over to the Simeon Research Hospital. Fast forward to 1992, when Emily was 7 years old. Dr. Glenn had watched her grow increasingly violent, so she sedated Gabriel and spoke to Emily alone to find out what was causing her outbursts. What she learned was horrifying. Gabriel was not only manipulating Emily into doing terrible things, he was also giving her superhuman strength, letting her take down people twice her size. He was even goading her into committing murder.
Pretends to be nice. But he's the devil.
Okay. I'm going to wake him up. Why don't you come around after I've injected him?
Oh my god! Oh my god, Mandy!
So what exactly is Gabriel? Gabriel is an extreme version of a teratoma, a A tumor consisting of tissues, hair, teeth, muscles, bones, but more specifically in this case, it's a parasitic twin. When two embryos develop in the womb don't separate like they should, one twin is dominant while the other is underdeveloped. It's not considered conjoined because the underdeveloped twin is dependent on the body of the other.
The next tape documented Gabriel's supernatural abilities. He could not only control Madison's mind and body, he could also communicate with the outside world through electronic devices. What's more, his powers were only growing stronger with age. The doctors warned that if he wasn't stopped, his violent nature would make him an unstoppable force of evil. He was also feeding off the host's bodily fluids and nutrients, and would eventually kill Emily if left unchecked. That's why Dr. Glenn recruited the two other leading doctors, and they made the decision to surgically remove Gabriel entirely. But because their brains were conjoined, fully removing Gabriel's brain would likely kill Emily. In the end, they could only remove the non-vital parts of his body, then tuck the remaining tissue back inside Emily's skull and seal it up. Meanwhile, back at the jail, a group of violent inmates saw Madison as an easy target and began to bully and beat her mercilessly. Frail and defenseless against the two attackers, Madison could do nothing but take the brutal beating as they kicked and punched her over and over again. But the second one of the inmates grabbed her by the hair, the lights in the cell began to flicker violently, and the inmate's hand was suddenly covered in a pool of blood. Madison then began to convulse violently, as if having a seizure. When she pushed her hair back, a grotesque, monstrous face pushed its way out of the back of her skull. In an instant, Gabriel took full control of Madison's body, and began a brutal, one-sided massacre. The inmates who'd been terrorizing her just moments before were now running for their lives, screaming in terror. One by one, he tore every last one of them apart. Just as he finished off the last inmate, guards who'd heard the commotion burst into the cell block and opened fire. Gabriel used one of the inmates' bodies as a human shield to block the bullets, then charged forward and killed the guards without hesitation. Meanwhile, after finishing the research files and tapes, Madison's sister immediately called Detective Shaw to tell him everything she'd learned. Just then, Shaw heard blood-curdling screams coming from inside the precinct. He and Hannah raced inside to find every inmate and guard in the cell block lying dead on the floor, with Madison nowhere to be found. Little did they know that Gabriel, using Madison's body, had already broken through the steel door of the evidence room, retrieved his clothing and the murder weapon, and stormed into the precinct's main office to continue his killing spree. Shaw arrived on the scene and called out Madison's name, desperate to wake her up and help her take back control of her body.
Madison!
But Madison was still trapped in her own mind, sitting in the jail cell, completely unaware of what Gabriel was doing. When she saw Shaw approaching with a gun, she thought he was the one who'd killed everyone around her. Terrified, she let go of her fight to take back control. Gabriel fought his way out of the precinct and escaped. Shaw knew that Madison's birth mother, Serena, was still in the hospital, and he realized with a sickening dread that she would be Gabriel's next target. Her decision to give them up had left both Gabriel and Madison with deep, unhealed emotional trauma. Meanwhile, Madison's sister rushed to the hospital, planning to move Serena to a safe location. But the officers posted outside the room had orders to let no one near the witness. But as they argued, the lights in the hallway began to flicker violently. The officer suddenly grabbed his chest in agony. Confused, Madison's sister stepped forward to help him, just as his pacemaker exploded, killing him instantly. Madison's sister immediately knew something was horribly wrong. She sprinted into the hospital room and tried to slam the door shut, but Gabriel kicked it open with brutal force.
I was saving you for last. Sit yourself. Over me. Along flesh and blood. I should have killed you before you were born!
Gabriel, no!
Gabriel. Please forgive me. I should never have given you away. You were my son. And I should have loved you no matter what.
Emily! No! No! You're hurting us!
Cindy, get out of here!
Go on!
Madison!
Shoot me!
Madison, I know you're in there!
And kill her!
What did you do to my sister?
She's not your sister!
Inside, Madison watched helplessly as Gabriel raised his weapon to kill her sister. She couldn't move an inch, her body was still completely under Gabriel's control.
Maddie, I know you can hear me. You have to fight him.
Madison's not home.
Madison, he killed your babies. He was the cause of your miscarriages. He was feeding off of your fetuses to build himself back up! Maddie, please come back.
But when Madison learned the truth about why she kept miscarrying, a white-hot rage ignited inside her. She fought with every ounce of strength she had to take back control of her body. But in the next second, Gabriel pulled the trigger, shooting her sister, then turned and shot Serena where she lay in the hospital bed. That's when Madison's voice rang out.
No, Gabriel. You were always a monster.
What happening?
Now I can do all the mind tricks you can.
Not possible!
Did you forget? We share the same brain.
I didn't ask to be tethered to you. You don't deserve your body. I can use it better than you.
Not anymore. You don't get to control me ever again. It's over, Gabriel. I'm taking it all back. My mind, my body, my everything. Now you get to live in a world that I create.
You can't lock me in here forever. You'll always be stuck with me. Sooner or later, I will get out.
I know. But next time, I'll be ready for you.
In the end, Madison not only successfully sealed Gabriel away, she also took full and permanent control of her body.
Maddie, Sydney, I'm so sorry.
I'm gonna lift this off you.
No, it's too heavy.
It was always my body. If he was strong enough to do this, then so am I.
The same supernatural powers that had been a force of destruction in the hands of a monster became a force for good in Madison's hands, a tool to protect the people she loved. Gabriel was the darkness etched into Madison's very bones, the shackles forged from her childhood trauma, and the part of herself she'd never dared to face. From being controlled and doubted, to fighting with every fiber of her being to reclaim her body and her life, this decades-long battle was never about fighting a monster. It was about making peace with her past. True strength is never about destroying the darkness within you. It's about having the courage to stand in the abyss, and carve out a reason to keep going, for yourself.